Hi guys, this week's screencast is going to be on planes of movement. Okay, so last week we looked at the joints, the ball and socket, hinge joint and the condyloid joint, and we also looked at the movements available. We're going to redo the movements that are available, but we also need to think about planes of movement. Now, planes of movement are basically, we describe movement in 3 dimensions, and they're based on 3 planes. Okay, so if you look onto this PowerPoint now, this is what your corner note should look like. So you should have your key topic, your planes of movement, and then write what planes of movement are under here: sagittal plane, frontal plane, transverse plane, and also on the left hand side, create your questions that are going to help you remember the definitions. So first of all, when we come to planes of movement, what I want you to write for planes of movement is the description of 3 dimensional movements at a joint. So that is what planes of movement mean. So the description of 3 dimensional movements at a joint. Now, the sagittal plane. The sagittal plane lies vertically. It divides the body into left and right parts, from the medial to the middle to the lateral outside. And here's a picture. So as you can see, the body is divided. It's split in half, straight down the middle, and you have a right and a left. Okay, so when we discuss medial, medial is middle, lateral is outside. Okay, the frontal plane. The frontal plane lies vertically. It divides the body into anterior, the front, and posterior, the back. Okay, so if we look at this picture, split right down the middle again, but this time it's split up the front, frontal, and the back. And this is known as the anterior. So the front of someone is the anterior, and the back of someone is the posterior. Hence why if you talk about someone's behind, you're talking about their posterior. And finally, the transverse plane. The transverse plane lies horizontally. It divides the body into superior, upper, and inferior, lower. And here you go. So we have movements that take place within these 3 planes, and we'll be discussing this in the lesson on Tuesday. So if you get those notes down, and I'll see you Tuesday.